Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin.
Deep beneath your feet, where the earth no longer breathes with wind or rain, something ancient and silent begins. In the darkest places, far below roots and rivers, stone is not still. It waits, it changes, it listens in its own slow way. Imagine drifting down into the crust, through layers of forgotten fossils and fossilized heat. Down here, the world is made not of forests and oceans, but of pressure and patience. This is where crystals are born, not in a flash, not with a cry, but with a whisper, a shift, a single molecule choosing a place to rest. The process begins with chaos. Hot magma swirls like soup stirred by a giant. Atoms float, bounce, collide. But even within this fiery dance, there is longing for order, for symmetry. As the magma cools, that chaos slows. And in that slowness, something beautiful can begin. A crystal takes its first breath. Crystals are not just objects. They are stories of time, of temperature, of patience. They grow one unit at a time, each building block finding its place, stacking with mathematical grace. Their shapes, hexagons, cubes, blades, pyramids, are not decided by chance. They are the signature of molecules coming to rest, of forces balancing like lullabies. Take quartz, for instance. CO2, the second most common mineral on Earth, found in sand and watches and mountain walls. But in a cave where time forgets its own name, quartz can form clusters like frozen fireworks. Its molecules, one by one, align in a six-sided symmetry. It doesn't rush. It doesn't try to be seen. It grows because that's what time allows. Now imagine the rhythm of that growth. Not minutes, not days, but thousands, millions of years. A crystal might gain only a millimeter in a century. It listens to the heat. It listens to the minerals in the water that passes through fractures in the rock. That water might carry calcium, fluorine, iron, and depending on what it brings, the crystal's color and character will change. Amethyst is quartz touched by iron, citrine by heat, smoky quartz by radiation's soft kiss over ages. Crystals dream in slow pulses. When we hold them, we hold time. Not metaphorical time, but real time made solid. That pink rose quartz in your palm, maybe it began growing when the first birds took flight. The clear crystal in a ring, perhaps it started forming when the continents still held hands in a single giant landmass. And yet, for all their grandeur, crystals can be delicate. If the temperature drops too quickly, they fracture. If the pressure changes too fast, they cloud. Like a poem that needs quiet to be heard, they ask the earth for stillness to become what they are. Some crystals grow in volcanic bubbles, geodes that look dull and gray on the outside, but inside shimmer with impossible beauty. They form when mineral-rich water slips inside the hollow, then slowly, quietly leaves behind its gifts. The inside walls become coated with tiny beginnings. And over time, these beginnings bloom into amethyst, calcite, celestite, each one a reflection of what the earth was dreaming when the water passed through. Others form under oceans, in the deep layers of sediment or between the cracks of metamorphic rock. Every environment gives birth to its own signature crystals. Halite rock salt forms in evaporating lakes. Beryl grows in granite veins. Garnet emerges where heat and pressure twist rock into new identities. There is something humbling about how long crystals wait to be seen. We dig them from caves, from mines, from stream beds. But long before we arrived, they were growing without audience, without rush, just forming layer by layer under the lullaby of deep time. Their colors are not painted on, but born from within. The red of a ruby is not added, it is the iron speaking. The green of emerald is not decoration, it is the chromium singing from inside its cage. Every hue is a record of the world that shaped them. They are not only beautiful, they are archives. Even their flaws speak. Inclusions, the tiny fractures and trapped bubbles inside a crystal, tell stories of the world's interruptions. A sudden jolt, a pocket of gas, a moment of heat. These are not imperfections, they are memories. And so the next time you see a crystal, on a shelf, in jewelry, in the rough shape of a stone pulled from river mud, you might wonder, how long did this take? What part of the earth held it? What temperature coaxed it forward? What water passed through, whispering secrets? Because every crystal is a listener, a recorder, a patient composer of symmetry. And in that symmetry there is something that feels almost like breath, almost like a pulse, almost like a dream. Crystals remind us that the earth is always changing, even when we don't feel it. That beauty can be slow. That transformation doesn't need noise, only time, space, and the quiet wish to grow. So rest here in this thought. Somewhere below you, even now in the stillness of the earth's bones, a crystal is beginning. It does not hurry, it does not need to, it knows what it is meant to become. Let's drift deeper now, not through space, but through understanding. Through the delicate, sleeping world of structure and silence and endless repetition. Because crystals, in their patient way, do more than just grow, they hold order. They are a blueprint written by nature, layer by layer, without flaw, until the earth's rhythm changes. They are born of chaos and end in calm, a reverse storm made of lattice and line. If you could shrink yourself down, become so small that molecules looked like galaxies, you would see something almost sacred. Crystals are not random. They arrange themselves with purpose, following invisible rules, the geometry of quiet intention. They repeat the same pattern again and again, until the shape becomes visible, until the light can bend inside them and scatter like rain on glass. This repetition is called a lattice. It is not seen with the eye, but it is felt in the way the crystal holds itself, the way it resists or accepts light, heat, pressure. Every crystal has its own symmetry, its own inner dance. Some make long, thin columns. Others create triangles, cubes, or spirals. Each one a frozen decision made by atoms long ago. It is here in this silent architecture that we begin to feel the deeper magic. Why do crystals form at all? Why would atoms, loose and wandering in a liquid or gas, suddenly fall into line? The answer lies in energy. Everything seeks the lowest energy, the place of balance. Crystals are the rest stop. The moment when particles say, "Here I can settle." They gather like snowflakes on a windowsill, drawn together not by force but by a quiet agreement. This shape brings peace. And peace for crystals is not stillness. It is perfection. Each bond between atoms is like a note in a melody, and when enough notes come together, a shape begins to emerge. A hexagon, a prism, a blade, these are not just forms, they are songs frozen in matter. Now think about salt, common everyday salt. NaCl, sodium chloride. It flavors your food, preserves history in pickled jars, dries tears when they fall. But if you look closer, if you let it grow on its own in a dish of slowly evaporating water, you will find perfect cubes forming, tiny cities of order rising up without sound. The sodium and the chloride come together in a square lattice because it is the most stable place they can be. And stability in the world of atoms is a kind of joy. Even more astonishing is how crystals can grow together, merge, intersect, interrupt one another without losing their individual order. This is called twinning, when two or more crystal lattices join but continue to respect each other's boundaries. It's like two voices harmonizing, each keeping its tone while creating something larger. Minerals like staurolite and gypsum do this, forming shapes that look like crosses, stars, or wings. Nature, it seems, has a deep affection for complexity wrapped in beauty. And yet no two crystals are exactly alike. Even in their strictest forms, they hold memory of the cave they grew in, the pressure they felt, the minerals that passed through them. Two amethysts from opposite sides of the world might look the same from afar, but inside one could carry a phantom, a ghost line from a shift in growth, and the other a fingerprint of iron changing its color only slightly. They are like siblings who lived in different houses, shaped by the rooms that held them. Time is the most important ingredient in all of this. Give a crystal enough of it, and it will grow as large as a mountain's heart. Rush it, and it clouds, cracks, or halts entirely. This is why crystals are teachers of patience. They cannot be forced, they will not be rushed, and in that refusal they teach us something about slowness, about depth. There are places in the world where entire caverns are filled with crystals the size of trees. In Mexico, deep inside the earth, lies the Cave of Crystals, a chamber of selenite beams so large you can lie across them like fallen logs. They grew in silence, undisturbed, over 500,000 years. In that quiet, the temperature and humidity remained perfect, like a long-held breath, and the crystals kept growing, each molecule finding its home, again and again, until the result was something almost mythic. And then there are crystals that never meet our eyes, microscopic ones inside rocks, forming tiny pockets of perfection. Some live inside meteorites born in stars and flung through space. Others drift through water, growing on the shells of sea creatures or the roots of plants. There are even crystals inside us, tiny formations of calcium and phosphate in our bones and teeth, helping structure the soft body we carry. Even snow, soft and silent, is a kind of crystal. Each flake begins as a speck, a tiny dust grain in the cloud. As water vapor meets it, the ice forms in six-sided harmony, a brief and beautiful pat. That melts the moment we try to hold it. Billions fall each winter, no two exactly alike, each a perfect accident of humidity, temperature, and wind. a momentary crystal born to vanish. Crystals are not just passive, they are reactive. They change in the presence of heat, pressure, even emotion in the case of some who believe in energy fields. Quartz, for example, holds a charge when squeezed, a property called piezoelectricity. This is why quartz is used in watches, in computers, in radios. It is a crystal that listens, that vibrates with precision, that marks time not with ticks but with pulses too fine to hear. A stone keeping time. In ancient cultures, crystals were more than decoration. They were seen as keepers of power, of balance. The Greeks believed quartz was eternal ice, frozen so deeply it could never melt. The Chinese carved jade into symbols of purity. In India, gems were used in healing, each one tied to elements of the body and spirit. Whether or not these meanings hold in science, they hold something true in the heart, that we look at crystals and feel something. Stillness, wonder, connection. And isn't it strange how something so old can feel so new? A diamond pulled from the earth may be billions of years old, older than the first forests, older than the oceans as we know them. Yet when it catches the light, it feels alive, as if the past is whispering through its facets. That is the paradox of crystals. They are both record and presence. They are born from ancient fire, but when we see them, they shine with now. Crystals are the quiet architecture of nature. They do not shout, but they endure. They do not chase change, but accept it slowly, folding it into their form. They teach us how to build beauty from patience, how to align ourselves, molecule by molecule, with the space around us. They show us how silence can shape and how structure can sing. So as you imagine the earth now, with rivers rushing, winds howling, magma flowing beneath tectonic plates, know that somewhere in a forgotten cave, a crystal is growing, not loudly, not quickly, but with perfect certainty. The atoms choose their places, the structure repeats, the form holds, and in that repetition something sacred appears. It doesn't demand to be seen, but if you pause long enough and quiet yourself just so, you might feel it, the slow heartbeat of stone. Now let us rest beside the memory of stone. Let the layers unfold like a quiet map drawn in time, not ink. We have followed the crystals down into the earth's secret chambers, watched them grow without witness, and listened as their structure whispered of patience. But before we leave this story, we must listen one last time, for crystals have more to tell, not through voice but through the feeling they leave behind. Something you carry in your palm when you hold a gemstone, or feel beneath your feet on a mountain path, a sense of stillness, of time made touchable. There's something about the way a crystal ends, its outer edge, its final line, that tells you everything about how it lived. When conditions were perfect, the lines are sharp, the facets clean, the surface almost mirror-like. But if the crystal was interrupted, if the water dried too fast, if the earth shifted suddenly, you can see it. A break in the pattern, a curve where there should be a line, but even in this there is no flaw, only story. Each edge carries the shape of time itself. Humans have always tried to understand these shapes. Long ago, we believed crystals were alive in a different way. We thought they grew with purpose, held powers of focus, memory, healing. In some ways, we weren't wrong. Though we no longer speak of magic in the language of science, we now know that crystals interact with energy, absorb radiation, change with temperature, and even help us measure the passing of time. They are still the silent participants in our machines, our instruments, our tools. But beyond utility, they offer something deeper, the invitation to look closely, to slow down, to marvel. A gem is more than a thing to wear. A crystal is more than a mineral to collect. These are objects that remind us what it means to become something slowly. They remind us that not all beauty is made quickly or loudly. Some beauty is made in secret, beneath pressure, over centuries. A sapphire does not rush. A garnet does not hurry to be seen. They wait until the world is ready to find them. And sometimes when they are found, they are changed, cut, polished, set into rings or hung on walls. Their inner fire revealed, not added. A diamond left rough may look like glass, but cut with the right angles it returns light with brilliance. That transformation is not unnatural, it is a conversation between nature and craft. Humans too can reveal the sparkle hidden in structure. Just as we chip away at our own surfaces to find clarity, so too do we polish the stone. Yet there is a quiet sorrow here as well, because use for every crystal admired, there are many destroyed. Mines strip mountains. Explosives shatter caves that took eons to form. We take too quickly, dig too deeply. The earth cannot replace what took 1,000,000 years to grow. And so, with every gem we hold, we might ask, can we honor what we've taken? Can we protect what remains? Can we, like the crystal, find a shape that holds without harm? In the high altitudes of the Himalayas, there are quartz crystals that formed in silence, untouched until trekkers stumbled upon them. Some were carried home, others left behind, still embedded in the rock. A scientist who once held one said it felt like time itself had paused in her hands, not in a dramatic way, but gently, like a breath that never needed to end. She kept it on her desk not to display, but to remind herself that growth is not always visible. Sometimes, what's most alive is the thing that moves the least. And in deserts, salt crystals form shallow gardens, white and glistening under the sun. They look like frost, like lace, like the earth writing poetry in geometry. They disappear when the rains return, and yet they always form again. A cycle of structure, collapse, and return. It is not permanence that makes crystals meaningful. It is their pattern, their willingness to appear again and again whenever the world allows. Even beneath cities, in subway tunnels and cave-ins, crystals form in the cracks. Small ones, fast ones. The minerals find any space they can, they reach, they build, and even if no one sees them, they continue. This is perhaps the quietest lesson of all, that growth does not always need a witness, that beauty can happen in hidden places. And maybe that is why we feel so drawn to them. Crystals are proof that time has shape, that silence has structure, that something can change while staying still. We look at them and see not just stone, but a way of being, a way to endure, a way to become. When a child finds a piece of agate on a trail, striped with centuries, they do not ask how it was made. They just hold it, turn it, feel its weight. Their wonder is enough. That wonder is what crystals invite, not answers, but presence, a kind of gaze that lingers. And as we close this story, let us hold one image close, a single crystal, half buried in soil, light catching on its edge. It does not call out, it does not need to shine, but there it is, complete, even unfinished, waiting not because it must, but because it always has. Let it be a reminder that not everything must move fast to matter, that some things grow slowly, in layers, in silence, that the deepest changes are the ones no one sees. Somewhere right now, in a cave without names, in a mountain never climbed, a crystal begins. One molecule finds another, a bond forms, the structure repeats, and the dream begins again. Beneath the crust of the earth, in places untouched by the warmth of the sun, something quiet holds the memory of light. It does not shine like a flame, it does not flicker like a star, but it glows gently from within. This is quartz, one of the most abundant minerals on earth, and yet it carries a mystery that even now feels almost spiritual. It is the stone of silence, of symmetry, of time slowed into order, and within it light does not just pass, it rests. Quartz begins in liquid, in molten rock or mineral-rich water where everything flows and nothing stands still. But something about quartz wants stillness. As the water cools, as the heat fades, molecules of silicon and oxygen begin to form a shape, not randomly but deliberately. They choose their places with care. One by one they stack themselves into a pattern, hexagonal, precise, repeating like a soft breath. They are not in a rush. And as they build, they begin to form something that can catch the light and hold it like a lullaby. Imagine a cave deep and forgotten where quartz crystals grow from the ceiling like frozen rain. The walls glisten with points of pale white, some clear as glass, others cloudy with memories. They rise from the floor and drip from above, forming clusters that look like frozen fire. These are not decorations. These are stories made solid. Each point of quartz is a chapter, each cluster a chorus. The clarity of quartz comes not from its lack of color, but from its purity. No distractions, no interruptions, just a clean crystalline lattice that allows light to pass through almost untouched. When you hold a clear quartz up to the sun, you are not just seeing through it. You are seeing light take its time, bending, slowing, refracting. The crystal does not distort, it invites, and the light, rather than rushing past, lingers. There are many kinds of quartz. Amethyst, when iron enters the lattice and sunlight adds its slow transformation. Citrine, warmed by natural heat until yellow as morning. Rose quartz, blushed by titanium or manganese. Smoky quartz, darkened by radiation over centuries, but at their heart they are the same CO2 silicon dioxide, the same two atoms, arranged with infinite patience, changed only by the world they grew in. Quartz is more than beautiful, it is useful. It vibrates with such consistency that we use it to keep time. In watches, in computers, in instruments that must be precise. A thin slice of quartz, when electric current passes through, vibrates at a predictable rate. This property, piezoelectricity, means quartz can turn pressure into signal and signal into rhythm. It is a translator between worlds, a whisper that becomes a pulse. And yet, even as it serves machines, quartz remains quiet in the hand. It is not flashy. It does not shimmer like diamond or burn like opal. Its glow is internal, a soft clarity. When held, it feels cool at first, then warm, as if it is meeting your temperature, becoming part of you for a moment. Some believe it stores energy, thought, intention. Whether or not that is true in the language of physics, it is certainly true in the language of feeling. In many traditions, quartz has been seen as sacred. Indigenous peoples wore it as protection. Healers used it as a channel. Builders placed it in temples, believing it focused the flow of energy. Even today, quartz is placed in corners of rooms, in pockets, under pillows, kept not for what it does but for how it feels. There is something about its symmetry that calms, something about its purity that steadies the breath. In deserts, quartz crystals lie half buried in sand, catching the light like tiny windows. In alpine veins, they emerge from granite with sharp points and clear hearts. In riverbeds, they are tumbled smooth, milky and rounded, softened by water and time. Each form is the same mineral, shaped by the rhythm of its place. A crystal is not only what it is made of, but where it has been. And sometimes, light does more than pass through quartz, it becomes part of it. Inside some crystals, tiny rainbows appear. These are not illusions. They are fractures, microscopic breaks where light splits and scatters. Inclusions of water or gas can create prisms, shimmering just beneath the surface. Look closely and you might see what looks like a sunrise trapped in stone. To study quartz is to study stillness. It teaches how structure creates space, how repetition brings clarity. It is not chaotic, it is composed. In its lattice, every molecule knows its place. That certainty is rare in the natural world. So much around us is random, messy, evolving. But quartz is peace made physical. Even in its imperfections, quartz tells a story. A phantom inside the crystal might mark a change in temperature. A cloudy patch might show where growth paused, resumed, paused again. These are not flaws, they are memories. Quartz does not forget what shaped it. It keeps those changes close, tucked inside its light. It can be small or it can be vast. Some quartz crystals grow no larger than a grain of sand. Others reach the size of children. The largest single crystal ever found was quartz, 20 feet long and weighing over 40 tons. It took millions of years to form, deep underground, untouched by sunlight or sound. And when it was finally seen, it did not shine with brightness. It glowed with quiet. Perhaps that is what draws us to it, the way it reflects our own search for shape. We too try to align ourselves. We build routines, habits, rituals. We try to find our own lattices, the patterns that hold us steady. Quartz reminds us that order is possible. That clarity is not an accident, but the result of long, quiet choices. And there is a lesson here deeper than science. A lesson about light, about how it travels through space, through stone, through us. Quartz does not trap the light, it shares it. It guides it. It lets it rest and then lets it go, just like a breath, just like a thought. So the next time you see a crystal of quartz, whether in a cave or in a shop, whether set in silver or lying quietly in sand, pause. Look through it, not past it. Let the light slow, let it linger. Feel the rhythm inside it, the heartbeat of its structure, the softness of its edges, the patience of its growth. Because in that small moment, you may feel what the earth has been trying to say all along, that even in silence there is movement, that even in stone there is light, and that sometimes the clearest things are the ones we nearly overlook. Where light sleeps in quartz, time breathes slowly, and if you're still enough, you can breathe with it. Let's drift deeper now, not downward, but inward, into the unseen rhythm of quartz. It is one thing to see its clear face or hold its sharp form in your hand, but another to truly feel what it is. This stone, this lattice, this ancient recorder of time and silence is more than a mineral. It is a quiet library, pages made of light and memory. And if we listen with softness, we might begin to read what it's been writing for millions of years with no ink and no sound. Quartz, at its simplest, is silicon and oxygen arranged in perfect symmetry. But what makes it remarkable is not what it is made of, it's how it holds itself together. Its molecules do not drift aimlessly. They know exactly where to go, how to lock into place, how to repeat that shape again and again until form becomes feeling. That structure, a spiral of 6, a rotation of angles, holds not only physical beauty but a strange emotional calm. There is something about that order that eases the eyes, the breath, even the mind. And the earth in its wisdom has placed quartz almost everywhere. In mountain veins it moves like frozen water, threading through granite like whispers between stones. In deserts it breaks into sand, turning the hardest material into softness beneath our feet. In rivers it tumbles smooth, gathering history in its rounded form. Quartz is in clocks and countertops, in temples and tools. We walk on it, build with it, carry it without knowing. But rarely do we pause to think that these silent fragments once shimmered in total darkness, forming layer by layer while volcanoes slept and seas changed shape. There are places where quartz becomes more than structure, where it becomes environment. In geodes, those hollow rocks lined with crystals, the inner world is built entirely from quartz's patience. A single drop of water seeps into a bubble in lava. It carries minerals, it leaves a trace. Another drop follows, and another. Years pass, centuries. Molecules settle into place. Crystals begin to form on the inner walls, pointing inward like stalactites made of starlight. The outside of the rock remains dull, even cracked, but inside a silent cathedral glows, all from quartz, all from slowness. And still there are stranger forms: rutilated quartz laced with golden threads of titanium, fadened quartz marked by phantom lines like scars remembered in light, celestial quartz layered and etched like a stairway made by wind. Each variant tells a different story, not of what quartz is, but of where it grew, what it endured. These are not decorations. They are geological emotions frozen in form. In laboratories, scientists study quartz not only for its hardness or clarity, but for what it does with energy. When pressure is applied, quartz releases an electric charge. When electricity is passed through it, it vibrates with incredible consistency. This is not magic, it is physics, but it feels magical all the same, that a stone from deep in the earth can mark seconds more precisely than any human heartbeat. That time itself can ride the rhythm of a crystal's vibration. And what is vibration if not the most basic form of movement, of life? Even in its stillness, quartz hums, not in a way we can hear, but in a frequency that holds everything from GPS satellites to sound waves to the inner balance of a musician's tuner. Quartz bridges the world of silence and sound, of stillness and signal. And perhaps that's why it has always been considered more than mineral. Ancient peoples may not have had electron microscopes, but they had intuition. They sensed the calm, the clarity, the resonance of quartz. In Tibet, clear quartz was carved into singing bowls. In Egypt, it was placed in tombs thought to guide the soul. In South America, shamans wore it in amulets to connect with dreams. Even today, people hold quartz during meditation, set intentions into its facets, feel comfort in its touch. Whether or not science explains that comfort, the feeling is real. There is something grounding about quartz. It doesn't shimmer or sparkle wildly. It doesn't demand attention. It's the quiet one in the room, the clear voice that doesn't rise in volume but never wavers. And sometimes, in a world full of noise, that's the voice we need most. In nature, quartz often forms alongside other minerals. It makes space for companions: tourmaline, feldspar, mica, fluorite. It does not compete, it coexists. In pegmatites, giant veins of crystal-rich rock, quartz is the foundation on which rare gems grow. Beryl, which becomes emerald. Spodumene, which becomes kunzite. These crystals all owe their home to quartz's steady presence. It is not always the centerpiece, but it is always the stage. And what of the light that moves through quartz? Light does not simply pass. It bends, it slows. Sometimes it fractures into rainbows. Sometimes it becomes caught in loops, creating internal reflections that seem like echoes. In some quartz, the alignment is so perfect that it acts like a lens, focusing the light into soft beams. In others, internal imperfections, so small they cannot be seen, scatter the light into haze. Each crystal is a different relationship with illumination. Each one a dialogue between the world outside and the silence within. Some quartz is clear, as if made of frozen breath. Others are cloudy, milky, dusted with history. Some are golden with iron, some lavender with lithium. Each hue tells you something about the water that flows. And nearby, the gases that pass through the rock, the temperature of the womb that held it. Quartz is not colored from the outside, it remembers what touched it. And like us, quartz carries its environment. It cannot help but reflect the conditions of its creation. If it grew too fast, its structure will be imperfect. If it cooled too quickly, it might fracture. If disturbed midway, it might shift, changing direction, creating phantoms. We too carry these signatures, lines in our skin, shapes in our choices, paths we did not plan but followed all the same. Perhaps that is why quartz speaks to us without speaking. It reminds us that growth is never linear, that clarity is hard-won, that even the clearest things can carry clouds, and that none of this lessens their value. So what is quartz really? It is the earth's breath slowed into stone. It is the memory of heat turned into shape. It is the silence that holds structure. And it is the structure that holds silence. It asks for nothing but offers everything. A place to reflect, a way to see, a rhythm to follow. And maybe, just maybe, when we hold it in our hands or wear it close to our hearts, we are not just admiring a mineral. We are remembering something older. Something that once moved through lava and water, through time and pressure, through darkness and distance, and finally arrived, clear and quiet and whole. That too is a kind of light. Let us return now to where we began, where light sleeps and the earth breathes slowly through the bones of crystal. The story of quartz is not only one of chemistry or mineralogy, it is a story of listening, of presence, of quiet clarity in a world that rarely pauses. And as this story comes to rest, it leaves behind a trail of light, not loud, not flashing, but soft as morning mist held in stone. In every corner of the world, quartz waits. It waits in caverns no foot has touched, in riverbeds that murmur songs through polished stone, in mountains weathered by rain and wind, and though it does not move, it changes everything it touches. Its very presence transforms space into stillness. Its form invites light to behave differently, time to feel slower, thoughts to settle. Quartz is not a thing to possess, it is a moment you step into. The slow growth of a quartz crystal mirrors the unseen growth within us. It builds its shape through repetition, not rush. Each layer follows the last, honoring the order it came from. And yet, every crystal is unique. It may begin the same way as another, but the world will shape it in its own way. Heat, water, pressure, interruptions, these sculpt the identity of each formation, just as each life follows patterns, yet breaks from them in beautiful ways. To hold a piece of quartz is to hold a fraction of geological breath, not just a stone, but a history. Perhaps it formed before the first mammal walked the earth. Perhaps it lay untouched while ice ages came and went. Perhaps it was created in the same moment your ancestors looked up at unfamiliar stars. We cannot know for sure, but the mystery is part of its gift. It asks us to wonder without needing answers. The heart of quartz is its symmetry, but symmetry does not mean perfection. Within its clear walls may be trapped bubbles of air, tiny cracks, phantom lines, cloudy zones, each a memory of change. These imperfections are not accidents. They are pauses in the pattern, marks left by transformation. We too are made this way, not from perfect lines, but from stories etched across our timelines. Quartz shows us that beauty deepens with depth, not with flawlessness. In certain sacred places, entire walls gleam with quartz veins. They shimmer without sunlight, just the dim golden hush of torchlight on crystal. Pilgrims walk slowly through these passages, not speaking, not touching. They don't need to. The stone does not demand ritual, it becomes one. In its presence, people feel something ancient and soft, a weight that isn't heavy, a silence that isn't empty, just clarity waiting to be felt. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about quartz is that it gives without depletion. Light can pass through it 1,000 times and it remains unchanged. Pressure can shape it but not consume it. It does not burn, does not wilt, does not tire. It is simply there, quiet, present, holding form, holding time, offering us a reflection of steadiness in a world too often flickering. Even in modern spaces where buildings rise and machines hum, quartz is never far. It's in our watches, keeping time, in our radios, transmitting voice, in telescopes, microscopes, circuits. It is the silent partner in our pursuit of precision. We rarely see it, but we rely on its rhythm. Quartz makes the invisible visible. It helps turn potential into clarity. Yet even in its most practical roles, quartz doesn't lose its poetry. When a singer tunes their voice with a quartz-based tuner, when a surgeon uses quartz in a precision instrument, when a geologi reads the lines in a crystal to date the age of rock, all of these are quiet conversations between light, time, and patience. Quartz does not boast, it simply continues. And so too does its story. Every year, deep in the earth, new crystals begin. Molecules align, not hurried by desire, but guided by balance. Drop by drop, layer by layer, the lattice unfolds. It may never be seen, it may never leave its cave, but it does not matter. Quartz does not grow to be admired. It grows because that is what light and silence do when given time. Children find pieces of quartz in dirt trails and hold them up like treasure. They don't need to know the name, the chemistry, the age. They just see something that shines, that feels cool in the palm, that catches the sun in a new way. That moment of wonder is the same everywhere, in fields, in classrooms, in open markets, in lonely deserts. Quartz awakens a kind of shared human memory, something older than language. A simple feeling, this is beautiful. We may grow older, technology may evolve, cities may rise and fall, but quartz will continue as it always has. It will form in shadows, it will cradle the light, it will listen endlessly. And those who listen in return will hear it, not in words, but in a calm that enters the body, the breath, the heart. A reminder that what is strong can also be soft, that what is clear can also be deep, that what is still can carry more movement than the wind. As you move through your life with all its noise and urgency, remember the way quartz grows. Slowly, patiently, inwardly, let yourself hold shape gently. Let light pass through you without trying to keep it. Let clarity come not all at once, but through repetition, reflection, rest. And maybe in a quiet moment, on a walk or by a window or in the hush between thoughts, you will feel it. The soft pulse of time, the breath of the earth beneath your feet, the knowing that you too are made of structure and light. Wherever you are, quartz is growing. Wherever you go, light is resting in stone. And within you, as in crystal, there is space enough for silence to shine. Beneath the soles of our feet, beyond the roots of trees and the reach of rivers, the earth is not silent. Though we do not hear it in the way we hear wind in the leaves or waves on the shore, it speaks. Slowly, deeply, constantly. It speaks through pressure, through heat, through shifting layers that move like breath stretched across centuries. The ground beneath us, so solid and steady, is in truth always whispering. And if we knew how to listen, we would hear the Earth's soft voice telling stories that began long before we stood upon it. Deep underground, where sunlight cannot reach and the air no longer stirs, the world changes its shape in secret. Layers of rock fold and unfold. Magma moves in slow spirals. Minerals melt and crystallize again. This place, hidden from view, is not a graveyard of the past but a nursery of becoming. Every inch of stone beneath our feet is the result of time's most patient work, and in those layers the planet remembers everything. The Earth is made of layers, like the pages of a book that's still being written. The crust, the outermost shell, is just the beginning. Beneath that lies the mantle, thick and slow and warm. Below the mantle, the core, liquid and solid, iron in motion, the very heart of our planet, beating with heat that has not cooled in 4 billion years. These layers are not separate in spirit. They speak to one another. Pressure rises, heat travels, faults shift. And in all of that motion, messages pass, whispers beneath the Earth, never ceasing. We often think of rock as the end of something, but in truth, it is always in motion. Even when it feels still beneath our steps, it is responding to forces we cannot feel. Tectonic plates, massive slabs of crust, drift across the surface, moving as slowly as our fingernails grow. But their motion builds mountains, opens oceans, and sometimes sends a tremor through the land that makes cities sway. These movements are not mistakes. They are part of the Earth's rhythm. Listen closer. Beneath volcanoes, molten rock gathers in chambers, thick with heat and the weight of minerals melting into one another. Some of it will never erupt. Some will cool in place, becoming igneous rock, diorite, granite, basalt formed from fire made still. These stones hold the shape of the heat that once moved through them. Their crystals and textures whisper of the temperature at which they froze, the pressure that pressed upon them. They are more than stone, they are cooled motion. Further below in the mantle, the minerals are not fully solid. They flow very slowly like thick honey. This flow drives the movement of continents. It shifts the placement of oceans. It creates earthquakes not as punishments but as conversations between layers under strain. And when pressure builds too long in silence, it releases in a sudden shudder, sending so. And forced to the surface. The ground trembles, buildings sway, but long before we feel the quake, the Earth has been whispering its warning. We measure these whispers in waves, seismic waves that ripple through the planet's body. Some move like the roll of ocean swells. Others shake side to side like the echo of distant thunder. Seismographs record these waves, drawing lines that look like soft static but which contain the shape of the Earth's voice. From these waves, scientists can tell where an earthquake began, how deep it struck, how far its voice carried. It is one of the few ways we can hear the inside of the Earth speak. In caves and canyons, the whispers become visible. Stalactites and stalagmites grow from ceilings and floors, shaped by water that carries minerals drop by drop. Over centuries, these formations rise and reach for one another, not with haste but with certainty. A single inch may take 100 years, but they never stop. Their layers are like rings in a tree, each one holding a trace of the air, the water, the world as it was when that drop fell. In their growth, the Earth records itself. Minerals speak too. In metamorphic rocks, those changed by heat and pressure, we see the Earth revising its own pages. Shale becomes slate, limestone becomes marble. Granite bends and stretches, folding its crystals into waves that shimmer under sunlight. These changes are slow and deep, and they leave no noise. But if you hold a piece of marble in your hand, you are holding the story of a rock that was once soft sediment at the bottom of a sea, then pressed, then heated, then lifted toward the sky. A stone that was rewritten. And then there is water, the quietest force of all, yet one of the most powerful storytellers beneath the surface. It seeps through cracks, carrying minerals, shaping caverns, eroding stone with nothing but time. Underground rivers carve paths wider than cities, yet we rarely see them. They hum in the dark, slow and steady, drawing whispers from the stone they pass. The drip of water in a cave is more than a sound. It is a message being written in crystal. Even fossils buried deep in layers of sediment speak across time. A shell encased in stone, a fern pressed into shale, a tooth held in sandstone. These are not just remnants, they are echoes. The Earth does not bury its dead in silence. It keeps them close, wrapped in stone, whispering their names to the layers above. And there are even deeper voices, ones we are only beginning to understand. Deep within the crust, microbes live without sunlight, feeding on minerals and chemical reactions. Entire ecosystems thrive in the dark, drawing their energy from the Earth itself. These tiny lives, invisible and ancient, may hold secrets about how life began, not with lightning and oceans, but with heat and stone and slow persistence. Their presence tells us that even in the quietest places, life listens. Life speaks. So the next time you walk across a patch of earth, on a forest path, or a city sidewalk, or a stretch of desert, pause. Beneath you, the Earth is not still. It is speaking. Maybe not in words, maybe not in sounds, but in motion, in pressure, in the soft rearrangement of minerals and time. you are never far from its voice. We are taught to look to the stars for wonder, but the ground beneath us holds stories just as vast. A single rock may carry the memory of fire, of ocean, of glacier. A piece of gravel may have broken from a cliff that once stood beside a prehistoric sea. The whisper is always there. We only need to listen. The earth does not speak quickly. It does not shout, but it speaks with certainty. It speaks in layers. It speaks in time. And when we learn to hear it, we begin to understand that we, too, are part of that whisper, a single thread in a conversation that has no end. Let's sink deeper now into the warm hush of the underground, where the earth reshapes itself not through noise, but through patience. Below the crust there is no sunlight, no seasons, no wind to stir the air. And yet it is not empty. It is full of movements too slow for our eyes, too subtle for our skin, but still present, still unfolding. This is the realm where pressure becomes architecture, where time becomes temperature, and where whispers are written not in words, but in folds and flows of ancient stone. Imagine the crust as a floating skin, cracked into massive plates, each one drifting slowly on the softer mantle below. These plates are in constant motion, colliding, pulling apart, slipping sideways. At their edges, the earth builds new land or pulls it back into itself. Volcanoes rise, mountains fold, trenches sink like wrinkles in the skin of time. These boundaries are not fixed, they are breathing lines, pulsing over millions of years. The Himalayas are still growing, the Atlantic is still widening. Beneath our modern maps, the world is quietly rearranging itself. And it is within these movements that rocks transform. Sediments once loose and soft as dust are pressed so tightly that they become stone. Limestone turns to marble, clay becomes slate. The minerals within are squeezed and heated, their molecules shifting position like dancers learning a new step. Crystals realign, layers ripple, colors deepen. What was once a simple rock becomes a symphony of texture and tone. Each transformation is a reply, a response to pressure's question. Even the heat within the earth is a kind of voice. The deeper you go, the warmer it becomes. This heat is the memory of creation, the leftover warmth from when the planet formed, combined with the slow decay of radioactive elements in the core. It rises through rock, softening it, guiding the movement of tectonic plates. Sometimes it bursts forth in fire. Other times, it warms water that seeps down through fractures, turning it into steam that rises back to the surface. In this way, heat circulates like breath, invisible but vital. In certain places, heat and pressure conspire to create chambers of molten rock, magma, beneath volcanoes. When the conditions are right, that magma erupts, reshaping the land in an instant. But even when it does not erupt, it leaves behind something lasting. As it cools, crystals form inside it: quartz, feldspar, olivine. These minerals grow in slow layers, their shape recording the pace of cooling. The minerals present the depth at which they formed. A granite countertop may seem still, but it began as molten memory, frozen into form. Far below all this in the mantle, rocks move not like solid objects but like syrup. Over time, under pressure, they flow, not quickly, perhaps a few centimeters each year, but this movement carries the continents. It drives the rise of ridges on the ocean floor where magma wells up and cools into new crust. It pulls tectonic plates apart, creating valleys and basins that may someday flood with ocean. These motions are not chaotic. They are part of a great cycle, the rock cycle, where everything is always becoming something else. Some rocks travel that full journey. A grain of sand once part of a mountain may wash to the sea, settle into layers, be buried and pressed into sandstone, then heated into quartzite, then melted, then cooled into granite, then lifted again into a mountain. Over hundreds of millions of years, a single grain may live a dozen lives. It does not resist change, it moves with it. In caves, the whispers take shape. Water slips through limestone, carrying with it traces of carbon dioxide and calcium. As it drips from the ceiling, it leaves behind a film of mineral, calcite, that slowly grows into stalactites. On the cave floor, where drops fall, stalagmites rise. They reach toward one another, perhaps to touch in a century or two. These formations are living stone, not in the way of flesh and breath, but in their growth, their rhythm, their response to the shape of time. There are even deeper places, called subduction zones, where one tectonic plate slips beneath another and is drawn down into the mantle. Their rocks are subjected to pressures beyond imagining. Their minerals are crushed, twisted, recrystallized into new forms. Some of the world's rarest gems, diamonds, form here, deep beneath the surface under immense heat and pressure. Carried up by volcanic pipes, they arrive as whispers from the deep, formed hundreds of kilometers below. When you hold a diamond, you are holding a voice from a place no human has ever stood. And then there are the rocks that float, pumice born of volcanic fury, filled with air pockets from rapid cooling, so light they can drift on water. These are the paradoxes of geology: stones that float, crystals that remember heat, minerals that form in silence and yet shimmer with memory. In every corner of the underground, rocks hold records. Their layers are archives, stacked and pressed, each one a page in the Earth's long diary. In the Grand Canyon, you can see this book opened wide. Strata of red, orange, gray, purple, each a different age, a different climate, a different world. Fossils within them whisper of forests turned to coal, of seas long vanished, of creatures whose names are known only by the stones that framed them. We often forget how close we are to this history. A road cut through a hill shows the same layers as a mountain. A pebble in your garden may have journeyed farther than any bird. The Earth's whisper is not only deep, it is near. And if you crouch and look closely and let yourself fall into the stillness of stone, you may begin to hear it. In places with geothermal activity like Iceland or Yellowstone, the Earth speaks more loudly. Steam rises from vents, mud bubbles with heat, geysers shoot water skyward, measuring breath in boiling pulses. But beneath even these dramatic signs is the same soft conversation, the exchange of heat, water, mineral, a dialogue that never stops, only shifts. And then there is the quiet miracle of soil, the topmost whisper. It seems so thin, so ordinary, but soil is made from rock, broken down by weather and root and time. It carries the nutrients of ancient mountains, the dust of glaciers, the ash of volcanoes, and from it life rises: grass, trees, wheat, flowers. The whisper becomes a voice, the voice becomes a song. The roots remember what the stone once held. This is the true gift of the underground, that it does not seek to be seen and yet offers everything. It gives us metal and gem, foundation and memory, heat and stillness. And more than anything, it gives us a sense of scale. A reminder that time is not ours alone, that the world was breathing before us and will continue long after. That beneath every step we take, a story continues, long and winding and quietly alive. So walk gently, step softly. Let your thoughts drift into the rock beneath you. Let the silence fill your ears. You are standing on chapters so old they no longer have names, but they are there, waiting, remembering, becoming. Let us settle now, as the earth does, into stillness, into the final folds of this story, where pressure becomes peace and silence takes the shape of stone. We have listened to the earth whisper in heat, in mineral, in slow shifting crust. We have followed its quiet conversations through caves, volcanoes, subduction zones, and beds of ancient fossils. But as we draw this journey to a close, there is one more truth to rest with: the earth is not only a place that holds us, it is a companion that remembers us. And in its underground silence, it holds a mirror to our own slow transformations. Everything beneath us is becoming something. That is the great secret of geology. Mountains rise and wear away, oceans open and close, rocks melt and reform. Even in their silence, nothing below the surface is finished. The stones we walk on are not remnants, they are participants. They are part of an endless cycle of renewal. And though we mark time in days and years, the earth moves in eons, in slow pulses too large for calendars. Beneath our homes, our cities, our forests and deserts, rocks press against one another. They listen to gravity, to water, to the long push of heat from below. They press and lean, fold and fracture. Some layers slip past each other in silence. Others catch, resist, and when the force becomes too much, they break, and we feel that break as an earthquake, a tremble that reminds us we are not on something fixed, but on something breathing. But even these fractures are not failures. They are adjustments. The earth is not trying to harm itself or us. It is trying to stay whole, trying to move its weight in balance, trying to release what it cannot carry. And in that movement, new spaces open. Cracks become pathways for water. Voids become chambers where crystals form. Even the violence of the underground becomes a doorway to beauty. In some of these spaces, deep below the surface, the most intricate crystals begin to grow. Water, heavy with dissolved minerals, seeps in and slows. As it cools or evaporates, the minerals begin to take shape. One molecule joins another and another. Quartz, fluorite, gypsum, calcite all find their home here. Over decades, centuries, or even longer, a gallery forms in silence. A cathedral of glittering geometry, unseen by any eye. Some may never be discovered. But that does not change the fact of their beauty. Above them, above these secret chambers and shifting plates, life continues. Trees take root in soil that was once molten rock. Rivers carve paths through stone that once lay buried beneath oceans. Animals burrow, plants grow, humans build, all while the earth's deeper voice continues its slow recitation. We live at the intersection of silence and movement, on a surface shaped by what lies beneath. And just as we are shaped by the ground below, we also leave our traces behind. Bones become fossils, ash becomes sediment, cities crumble and become part of the layers. Our presence is recorded in ways we will never see. A shard of pottery, a metal coin, the outline of a footprint in volcanic ash. these, too, become part of the geological archive. Long after we are gone, the Earth will hold our memory as it holds the memory of ammonites, of mammoths, of raindrops that once fell on ancient dunes. There is something comforting in this, to know that we are not above the Earth but of it, that our lives, though short in comparison, are stitched into the same fabric of change and quiet return. Our bones may rest in the ground, but they do not vanish. They become part of the story, a whisper added to the whisper. And there are other messages buried deep, magnetic signatures frozen into rock, recording the shifts of Earth's poles, layers of ash that mark ancient eruptions, sediment bands that show when rivers flooded, when glaciers melted, when deserts bloomed. All of it is still there, beneath us. And scientists, like careful listeners, read these layers not with their ears, but with their eyes and tools and patience. They read the Earth like a letter still being written. In this way, geology is not just a science of rocks. It is the study of remembering, of change, of resilience. It tells us that nothing is wasted, that even the hardest things can be worn down gently, that even the deepest wounds, the fault lines, the volcanic scars can create space for new beauty to rise, a lake in a crater, a cave filled with crystals, a mountain built from the ashes of eruption. And just as the Earth carries its past in layers, so do we. We are built from our own sediments, memories, moments, silences, pressures. We fold, we bend, we break, we rebuild. We are not so different from the stone. And perhaps that is why we feel a certain stillness when standing before a canyon wall or sitting quietly in a cave. It is a recognition, an echo, a reminder that time does not rush, that it loops and drifts and returns. When we listen closely to the Earth, we do not hear answers. We hear patience, we hear endurance, we hear the art of becoming stretched across a canvas of stone. We hear what it means to change without panic, to rest without stopping, to carry the past without losing the present. We hear how something can break and still be beautiful, how something can disappear from sight and still remain. And in those moments, we understand that the ground beneath us is not just holding us up. It is holding us close. It is cradling the weight of our lives, just as it has cradled volcanoes, oceans, forests, and stars. And when we walk across it, we are not walking on stone, we are walking on stories. So let the Earth whisper. Let it speak to you in silence, in heat, in the still pause of a mountain evening. Let it remind you that everything is connected, that everything is always moving, even when it seems still. That change is not the enemy of peace, it is its teacher. Somewhere deep below, a new crystal begins, a fault adjusts, a pocket of warmth rises through mantle, a fossil settles into stone, the Earth continues always without hurry, and we who live upon it are part of that continuation. We are not separate from the whispers, we are one of them. Somewhere deep in the folds of the Earth, beneath mountains that sleep and rivers that forget their names, something blue begins to breathe. It does not shine at first, it is not yet a gem, it is only pressure, only heat, only the slow compression of elements drifting through ancient rock, but over time, so much time that the sky has changed shape, a crystal begins to form. It is corundum, pure and strong, but touched by traces of iron and titanium. And those tiny touches, invisible to the eye, awaken something unexpected. They awaken blue. Not the pale blue of morning mist or the soft blue of sky seen through tears, but something deeper, the blue of memory, the blue of knowing, the blue that will one day be called sapphire. Sapphires do not rush their birth. They require perfect conditions, pressure balanced like breath, heat steady as heartbeat, and a pocket of the Earth untouched by chaos. They grow within metamorphic rocks like schist or gneiss, or in the calm interiors of ancient igneous bodies. Each molecule of aluminum and oxygen finds its place with care, building a crystal that is second only to diamond in hardness. The lattice they form is tight, strong, unyielding. But it is not just their strength that endures, it is their story. Blue sapphires are the ones we know best, but corundum in other colors takes on other names. Ruby, when colored by chromium, is its fiery cousin. Yellow, pink, green, even violet sapphires exist, their hues shaped by the minerals that join them in their hidden growth. But it is the blue deep, royal, endless that draws us in. That color is not surface. It is woven into the crystal itself, part of its very being. The deeper you look, the more it seems to go on forever. To hold a sapphire is to hold a contradiction. It is ancient and new. It is solid and light. It is still, yet it catches fire in sunlight. Its surface is smooth, cool, polished to brilliance. But within it are the fingerprints of pressure, the ghost lines of growth, the tiny fractures that mark where the Earth once shifted just slightly during its formation. These marks are not imperfections. They are memories, evidence of the journey from deep below to the world above. There is something about blue that quiets the mind. Scientists have studied this. The way blue light calms the nervous system, the way blue surroundings reduce the pulse. but long before science could measure such things, we already knew. Ancient civilizations kept sapphires as sacred stones. In Persia, it was believed the sky itself rested upon a giant blue sapphire, and its reflection gave the heavens their color. In India, it was said that sapphires brought wisdom and protection, but only to those who approached them with a pure heart. Even today, they are seen as symbols of loyalty, insight, and depth of feeling. Sapphires are not easily found, they must be sought. Miners dig through riverbeds, sift through gravel, hike through dense forests to reach deposits in Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Madagascar, and Montana. Most sapphires come to light as rough stones, dull, unpolished, hiding their brilliance like secrets wrapped in silence. Only when they are cut do they reveal the light they carry. And yet even then their power is not in sparkle alone. It is in weight, in presence. In the sense that something old and true rests in your hand. Each sapphire is shaped by its birthplace. A stone from Kashmir is known for its velvet blue, soft and misted like twilight. A stone from Sri Lanka may hold the light of dawn, clearer, lighter, more crystalline. Madagascar's sapphires, young in geological terms, glow with promise. No two are the same, even when they look alike. Each one carries the fingerprint of the Earth's chemistry, temperature, and time. Each one is a singular breath, crystallized. Scientists now study sapphires not only for beauty, but for their resilience. Their structure makes them resistant to scratching and heat. They are used in lasers, in electronics, in instruments that must endure the most extreme conditions. In some spacecraft, windows made of synthetic sapphire protect delicate sensors from heat and pressure. What once was jewel is now shield. What once was ornament is now survival. And yet, its essence has not changed. The sapphire is still what it always was, truth under pressure. And that pressure, the very force that creates a sapphire, is the same that reshapes mountains, that moves tectonic plates, that births earthquakes and folds valleys into place. From such immense, often destructive force comes this single, serene result, a blue crystal that seems to still the world when you look into it, a paradox, a quiet born of collision. If you look into a sapphire long enough, you may begin to see more than color. You may see depth. Some stones hold inclusions, tiny lines or feathers, fine as a breath frozen in glass. Others carry traces of rutile, a mineral that forms star-like patterns when cut a certain way. These stars do not shimmer from the surface. They rise from within as if the stone remembers light it never saw. This phenomenon, called asterism, makes the sapphire seem like it holds its own sky. And perhaps that is the secret. Sapphires do hold sky. Not literally, but in feeling, in vision, in the way they draw the gaze upward and inward at the same time. To stare into a sapphire is to remember that there are parts of the earth that carry the heavens inside them, that deep within darkness blue can grow. Long before people understood the chemistry of color, they believed sapphires could protect against envy, betrayal, and harm. Kings wore them in rings. Clergy placed them in sacred icons. Sailors carried them on long journeys. Lovers gave them as pledges, not because they sparkled, but because they seemed to know something, because they felt wise, because they felt eternal. And yet, for all their depth, sapphires remain quiet. They do not shout, they do not blind, they invite stillness. When set into gold or held in hand, they carry a weight that feels like memory, not of one moment, but of many. A weight that says, I have seen pressure, I have survived heat, I have become. So when you next see a sapphire, whether on a ring in a museum or nestled in rough earth, pause. Don't just admire its color. Feel its story. Feel the quiet compression of centuries. Feel the slow drift of elements into perfect order. Feel the breath of blue, steady and endless, rising through stone. The memory inside a sapphire is not a single event. It is a layered song, a slow, silent journey from deep below, shaped by forces too vast to witness. And now here it is, small enough to hold, deep enough to lose yourself in. This is not just geology, this is something more, a kind of knowing that does not need to speak, a kind of presence that waits to be felt. The sapphire does not ask to be understood, it only asks to be held. Let's drift further now, deeper into the lightless places where sapphire dreams begin. Beneath the crust, where silence thickens and stone no longer remembers the sound of air, the conditions for sapphire begin to stir. Here, under the immense pressure of metamorphic zones or cooled veins of ancient magma, crystals are born not in abundance but in careful isolation. Corundum, the mineral family from which sapphire emerges, is rare in its perfect form. It does not take to impurity easily. But when it does, when trace elements like iron and titanium enter the lattice just so, a blue begins to grow. Not sudden, not complete, but like a tide coming in over years too long to name. To form a single sapphire, the earth must be still in its own way. The temperature must hold, the pressure must remain, No sudden change, no shaking, just calm, relentless formation, in metamorphic envir. Ornaments such as those found in Sri Lanka or Kashmir, the process can begin in limestone or shale that has been pushed deep underground by tectonic forces. There, under immense heat, the rock becomes a forge, and from that crucible corundum emerges. Each crystal finds its shape, hexagonal and compact, holding tight to the form that nature has taught it. Yet even once formed, sapphires do not immediately rise to the surface. They remain buried, locked in their host rocks, carried only when erosion or uplift breaks the mountain open. Rain falls, wind scrapes. The sapphire, so hard and stubborn, resists the wear. It tumbles through time, slowly separated from the rock that once cradled it. Eventually, it may settle in a stream bed, among gravel and sand, waiting quietly for a human eye to notice the way it does not dull in water. And even then, its story is far from told. Most sapphires are not perfect when found. They are clouded with inclusions, tiny crystals of other minerals, remnants of the world that helped them grow. Some carry long needle-like structures that shimmer under light. Others contain zoning bands, subtle rings of color that mark pauses in their formation like the rings of a tree. These are not flaws. These are signatures. The earth does not grow anything without history. When cut by skilled hands, a sapphire becomes a window, not only to its own inner world but to the world it came from. Gem cutters must study the raw stone, finding the direction of its crystal structure, deciding how best to shape it so light will enter and return. Every cut is a choice, a trade between size and sparkle, between clarity and truth. And when done with care, the result is not just beauty, it is a conversation between nature and human hand. In science, sapphires serve not just as gemstones, but as tools. Their hardness, second only to diamond, makes them perfect for surfaces that must not scratch. Watch faces, surgical blades, and high-performance electronics all use synthetic sapphire. In laboratories, transparent sapphire windows allow scientists to observe reactions at high temperatures and pressures. And in the night sky, some spacecraft carry sensors shielded by sapphire, protecting fragile instruments from the vacuum and heat of space. What was once forged deep beneath our world now guards us in the stars above it. But even beyond use, sapphires remain symbols. They appear in ancient texts and royal crowns. In ancient Rome, they were believed to protect the wearer from harm and envy. In medieval Europe, they were thought to represent heaven, a piece of divine truth made solid. For centuries, blue sapphires were seen as guardians of honesty, wisdom, and clarity of thought. And today, they remain emblems of loyalty and steadfastness, often chosen for engagement rings, symbols of love that holds its shape under pressure. What is it about blue that draws so much meaning from us? Psychologists suggest it is the color of depth, the ocean, the sky, the twilight between day and night. Blue calms, blue reflects, blue invites introspection. And when that color is made physical, when it lives inside a crystal born from heat and time, the effect is more than aesthetic, it is emotional. To wear a sapphire is to carry a stillness. To feel, perhaps without knowing why, that you are holding something that remembers more than you do. Not all sapphires are deep blue. Some are pale and silvery like a winter morning. Others are velvety like midnight sky. Some shift color entirely, changing from blue in daylight to violet under lamplight. These color-changed sapphires seem to carry two truths at once. And some rare specimens are padparadscha, an unusual mix of pink and orange, the color of a tropical sunset. Even in this family of stone, diversity thrives. No single form is the standard. Every stone offers its own version of memory. Inclusions within sapphires, once seen as blemishes, are now sometimes celebrated. They are studied to understand the geological processes that formed the crystal. A tiny zircon trapped inside a sapphire might allow scientists to date the crystal itself, revealing not only its age but the history of the terrain where it formed. This is geology as archaeology, a sapphire as time capsule, a single stone carrying millions of years of knowledge, waiting in silence. In Buddhist tradition, sapphire is one of the sacred navaratnas, the 9 planetary gems believed to bring balance to the wearer's life. Blue sapphire represents Saturn, the planet of discipline and deep learning. Its influence is said to bring focus, truth, and endurance. Whether or not one believes in planetary forces, the symbolism feels right. Sapphires do not flash, they endure, they do not demand attention, they reward it. And so it is not surprising that throughout time, people have turned to sapphires not only for wealth or ornament, but for meaning. Monarchs set them in their crowns not just to show power, but to ask for guidance. Healers wore them at the throat, believing the stone could clear speech and purify thought. And in times of great uncertainty, sapphires were passed between hands as a promise that clarity could still be found. It is easy to forget in the glitter of jewelry cases and spotlit displays that every sapphire began in darkness, that every polished gem was once rough and hidden, that before it became a symbol, it was simply a crystal trying to hold its shape. And perhaps that is the quiet lesson it carries, not that beauty must be shown, but that it begins in places where no one is looking. That pressure, if given time, can create peace. So when you next see a sapphire, look closely, look past the surface. Notice the faint lines, the soft zoning, the depth of color that seems to move when tilted. That is the stone remembering. That is the earth speaking slowly, in a language we are just beginning to understand. The memory inside a sapphire is not a single image. It is a layered reflection of heat, of pressure, of presence, and above all of time, time not counted in seconds, but in silences that shimmer. Now let us rest with the sapphire in the quiet light it offers, not a blazing flash, but a slow, deep glow. We've followed its journey through the heat of the earth and the hush of rivers, through myth and molecule, through science and story. And now, as this crystal finds its way into our palms, our pockets, our memories, it asks nothing of us but attention. A sapphire does not need to dazzle. Its purpose is not to overwhelm. It is simply to be, to endure, to hold the color of time. There is something sacred in that endurance, not sacred in the sense of temples or altars, but in the sense of stillness that touches something old inside us. In a world that rushes and forgets, a sapphire remembers. It does not move, but it keeps record. It does not speak, but it carries language. When you hold it, you hold more than beauty. You hold patience. You hold precision. You hold pressure resolved into peace. Some sapphires are set into rings, worn daily, absorbing the rhythms of the hand, the warmth of skin, the clink of porcelain, the pulse beneath a wrist. Over time, the stone gathers more than fingerprints. It gathers moments, a conversation held under moonlight, a letter signed in ink, a tear caught on a quiet evening. It does not reflect these moments like a mirror. It absorbs them, keeps them, not with detail, but with energy. A sapphire is not a diary, it is a vessel. Other sapphires are locked in vaults, untouched for centuries, passed from empire to empire. They rest in crowns on scepters behind museum glass, but even in stillness they listen. The Star of India, one of the largest known sapphires, sits quietly behind a protective case. It gleams with a silvery star born of tiny inclusions aligned perfectly in its core. That star is not decoration, it is the crystal remembering how it grew, how slowly, how silently, how perfectly. But the truth is, not every sapphire needs to be rare or large to be meaningful. Even the smallest stone, when held with care, becomes something extraordinary. A fragment chipped from a larger piece, a clouded pebble found in stream gravel. These are not lesser, they are just earlier in their becoming. Not every story reaches its climax. Some are beautiful in their unfolding. In some cultures, sapphires are buried with the dead, not as treasure but as companions. Their weight is meant to carry clarity into the next world, a light that does not flicker, a memory that does not fade. Whether or not one believes in afterlives, the gesture is tender. To send someone off with a piece of the earth that holds blue as if it were breath. To say goodbye not with noise but with stillness. There are people who wear the same sapphire for a lifetime. It becomes part of their story, a constant amid change. It sees them through new cities, lost love, long winters, and at the end of that journey it remains unchanged, not because nothing happened, but because it held everything quietly. Some things, we discover, are strong enough to keep their shape no matter how much they are carried. And yet, for all its strength, the sapphire is not invincible. It can chip, it can fracture if struck just right, it can be scratched by something sharper. Like anything precious, it requires care. But even in its fragility, there is something profound. The same pressure that made it strong also made it vulnerable. There is no true endurance without sensitivity. There is no real strength without the risk of being broken. Sapphires also fade sometimes. Their color, though locked into their crystal structure, can be altered by intense heat or long exposure to light. Some stones are heat-treated on purpose to enhance their hue. Others are left untouched, celebrated for the softness of their natural tones. There is no single right way to be a sapphire. Every version holds its own truth, just as every person are eyes their own color, sometimes vivid, sometimes subtle, sometimes seen only in the right light. To study sapphires is to study stillness that holds depth. Scientists who examine them under microscopes do not only look for clarity, they look for inclusion. For the tiny grains, the microscopic lines, the growth marks that reveal the journey of the stone, gemology is not the science of perfection. It is the science of origin, of understanding where a thing came from and how that path shaped what it is now. The earth makes no two sapphires alike. Even from the same pocket of rock, they emerge with different shades, different clouding, different structures. Each one is like a note in a long, unbroken song. Each one shaped by minute changes in pressure, trace minerals, tiny fluctuations in temperature over thousands of years. and when we hold one, we are holding not just a piece of earth, but a piece of its breath. It is possible to synthesize sapphires now. In labs under controlled conditions, perfect crystals can be grown in weeks rather than eons. They are visually identical to the real thing, just as hard, just as beautiful, but they do not carry the silence of time. They do not whisper of buried mountains or long-forgotten tectonic shifts. Their blue is flawless, but it does not echo. And that echo is what we return to. The memory inside a sapphire is not a record of events, it is a resonance. It is what remains when all the heat has passed, when all the pressure has resolved. It is the color that stays even when the light is gone. That feeling when you stare into a sapphire and forget where you are for just a moment, that is not imagination. That is the stone remembering something for you, something you cannot name but still feel. We are drawn to stones like this not because they sparkle, but because they remind us how to be still, how to hold shape through change, how to carry light without showing it off. A sapphire is not loud. It does not demand attention, but once seen, it is not forgotten. So let this be your final image, a small sapphire resting on the open palm. It does not move, it does not shine unless you move it. But when the light touches it just right, something inside comes alive. A depth opens, a breath stirs. A memory begins to surface, not the stone's alone, but yours, something ancient, shared, and deeply calm. The earth has many voices, but the sapphire speaks in the quietest one. It waits not to be admired, but to be understood. And when you listen, truly listen, it will say nothing you haven't already known deep within your own stillness. It will only remind you that you too were shaped by pressure, that your color comes from what you carry inside, that time is not your enemy, and that the deepest blue does not fade, it deepens. Deep beneath the surface of the earth, far below where roots can reach and rivers can run, there is a realm of impossible pressure. A world without light, where the crust thickens and the mantle breathes heat like a memory held too long. It is in this place, hidden hundreds of kilometers beneath our feet, that one of the most perfect structures in nature begins to form. It does not grow with ease. It does not arrive without trial. It is created only in the most intense of conditions, where carbon is pressed so hard it cannot move, cannot breathe, cannot be anything else. It is compressed into clarity, and from that clarity a diamond is born. Diamonds are not made where we live. They come from a world we will never touch. A world of such heat and pressure that only certain atoms can survive it. Carbon, when arranged gently, becomes graphite, soft, dark, easily smudged. But when pushed, when squeezed by more than 700,000 pounds per square inch, it changes. It tightens, it shifts. It realigns into a lattice so strong, so flawless, that it becomes the hardest natural material known to us. This transformation is not gentle. It is the result of a kind of geological violence, but what emerges from it is not destruction. It is light made solid. The diamond's structure is what gives it its strength. Each carbon atom connects to 4 others in a tight tetrahedral arrangement, forming a 3-dimensional web that resists change. This tightness, this interlocking precision, is what makes a diamond so hard, so clear, so capable of returning light in a way that few other stones can. But its brilliance is not just in its sparkle. It is in its memory, because embedded within every diamond is the story of the pressure it endured. Most natural diamonds form between 140 and 200 kilometers beneath the Earth's surface, in the upper mantle, where temperatures reach more than 1,000 degrees Celsius. They are not brought to the surface by their own power. They ride on the back of ancient volcanic eruptions that happened quickly, violently, and long ago. These eruptions formed vertical pipes of rock called kimberlites, and it is through these rare and narrow chimneys that diamonds find their way upward. It is a journey that takes seconds, but only after millions of years of waiting. Not all carbon survives the journey. Some turns back to graphite, some is lost, but a few make it through, locked inside nodules of rock, protected by time and chance. These diamonds, once cooled and caught in ancient stone, wait again, this time for eyes to find them, for hands to lift them from the earth, for stories to begin anew. When unearthed, diamonds are not always clear. Some are cloudy, some are tinged with yellow or brown, some hold inclusions, tiny flecks of other minerals, bits of the mantle itself carried along in the crystal's birth. These inclusions are not flaws, they are witnesses. Some have allowed scientists to peer into the deep earth, revealing water trapped hundreds of kilometers below the surface. Others hold rare minerals that only form under conditions we cannot replicate. A diamond, in this way, becomes not only a gem, but a messenger. And then there are the diamonds that formed even deeper, so-called superdeep diamonds, birthed more than 600 kilometers beneath the surface. These hold secrets from the lower mantle, where pressures are almost unimaginable. Some of these diamonds contain ringwoodite, a mineral that only forms under such extreme pressure, and which carries water within its structure. The discovery of ringwoodite inside a diamond confirmed what scientists long suspected, that the Earth's interior holds vast oceans, hidden in the mineral lattice of deep rock. Oceans not on the surface but beneath it, held in silence, remembered in stone. In this way, diamonds extend beyond beauty. They become archives of the unreachable. They hold time not as a passage but as a presence. A single diamond may be more than 3 billion years old, older than the continents as we know them, older than the first multicellular life. To hold one is to hold a fragment of Earth's memory before trees, before skies were blue, before oceans took their shape. But their surface tells none of this. When cut and polished, diamonds shine with perfection. Their edges are sharp. Their facets reflect light in sudden, dazzling fire. And yet that light is only the last part of the story. The real brilliance of a diamond is not in what it shows, but in what it withstood. The cutting of a diamond is a careful task. Because of its hardness, it can only be shaped by another diamond. Craftsmen study the stone's structure, looking for planes of weakness, called cleavage lines, that will allow the stone to split cleanly. These lines are not imperfections. They are part of the design. The stone knows how it wants to be shaped, and the cutter, if wise, listens. Once cut, a diamond becomes more than mineral. It becomes metaphor, a symbol of love, of resilience, of eternity. We give diamonds to mark beginnings and promises, to remember strength and celebrate endurance. But we often forget that every diamond was once invisible, that it began in darkness, shaped by pressure no human could survive, and emerged only because the Earth let it go. Even synthetic diamonds, grown in laboratories under controlled conditions, must follow the same rules. Carbon must be pressed, heat must be applied, time must pass, the lattice must be earned. And while these diamonds shine just as brightly, they lack the wild, unpredictable depth of their natural cousins. They are perfect in a different way, flawless by design, but the Earth's diamonds carry something else, a sense of origin, a breath of the deep. And beyond their value in jewelry, diamonds serve science. Their hardness makes them ideal for cutting and grinding tools. Their thermal conductivity helps cool high-performance electronics. In laboratories, diamonds are used in anvil cells, devices that recreate the pressures of the deep Earth, to study materials at extreme conditions. Some researchers even use diamonds to study matter at the atomic level, focusing lasers through their transparent lattice to observe quantum behaviors. The stone, once known only for beauty, becomes a lens for discovery. But even with all this, the diamond's most powerful gift may be what it teaches. That pressure, while overwhelming, is not always the end. That under the right conditions, what seems impossible becomes inevitable. That clarity can come not from absence of stress, but from its transformation. A diamond is not born from ease. It is born from resistance, from confinement, from the relentless force of the world pressing in. And somehow in that silence it becomes more than it was. So when you see a diamond, whether on a hand, in a case, or resting in stone, look past the brilliance. See the weight it carries. Imagine the centuries of stillness, the miles of rock above, the magma flowing nearby, the pressure that never let up. And understand that the sparkle you see is not only light, it is survival. The diamond remembers everything. It remembers being carbon in motion. It remembers heat without escape. It remembers the squeeze of time. And though it says none of this aloud, it tells it still, in its angles, in its edges, in its shimmer that feels somehow deeper than reflection. It is the stone that endures, the stone that transforms without losing itself, the stone that began in darkness and emerged clear. And that, perhaps, is its greatest beauty of all. Let us journey further now into the silent realm where diamonds continue to remember. We've traced their beginnings in darkness, pressed beneath continents, shaped by heat and quiet violence. But there is still more to understand, more to feel in the delicate relationship between pressure and purity, between deep earth science and the quiet beauty we see only after the struggle is complete. Because diamonds do not simply survive pressure, they capture it, reflect it, and carry it into the light. They become a kind of stillness, not because they were untouched, but because they were changed completely. Inside a diamond, there are no wasted atoms. Its carbon lattice is a masterpiece of precision, each atom bonded tightly to 4 others, arranged in a repeating 3-dimensional framework that stretches across the entire stone. This perfect geometry allows no softness, no slippage, no bending. And it is this very rigidity that makes the diamond so enduring. It resists heat, it resists pressure, it resists time. And yet, even in this apparent perfection, there are secrets, small inclusions, faint hints, microscopic traces of other elements or old stress lines, held within like whispers caught in ice. Some diamonds are born colorless, the kind prized for their purity and brilliance, but others, touched by nature's experiments, carry color as memory. A slight presence of nitrogen turns a diamond yellow. Boron creates rare blue stones. Radiation can tint them green, and in some exceptional cases, pink or red diamonds form, likely shaped by intense distortions in the crystal structure, like scars formed under stress. These colors are not painted on, they rise from within. They are records of the forces endured, the moments in the earth when something shifted just enough to leave a hue behind. These colors, especially the rare ones, are studied as much for what they mean as for how they look. A pink diamond might come from a zone of ancient upheaval, where tectonic plates once collided with tremendous force. A green one might have sat quietly next to a pocket of radioactive minerals for millions of years, absorbing their presence silently. In every case, the diamond becomes not only beautiful, but informational. A storyteller etched not with ink, but with structure and shade. Diamonds also contain tiny time capsules, microscopic inclusions of mineral and fluid trapped during their growth. These inclusions are sometimes only a few microns across, invisible without high-powered microscopes. And yet within them, scientists have discovered entire worlds. Some contain minerals that form only under the crushing pressures of the deep mantle. Others hold small droplets of fluid from ancient oceans now long gone. In one instance, a diamond revealed saltwater from a subterranean brine more than 600 kilometers below the surface, proof of a vast water cycle hidden inside the earth. These findings remind us that diamonds are not only crystals, they are vessels, each one carrying a fragment of the world as it once was. In certain places around the world, diamonds surface through ancient, weathered kimberlite pipes, volcanic conduits that last erupted millions, sometimes billions of years ago. In South Africa, Botswana, Russia, and Canada, miners sift through deep rock to find the crystals that made that incredible journey. Most never shine in jewelry. They are industrial grade, used to cut and grind. Others are small or cloudy or oddly shaped, but each one is still a witness, still a survivor. And even the clearest, most perfect diamond ever cut began as a piece of carbon transformed by pressure no hand could bear. Some diamonds are found not in rock, but in riverbeds called alluvial diamonds. These stones have traveled. Carried by water over millennia, they have rolled through time, smoothed by sand and current, polished by motion. Their journey above ground is long, but their story beneath it is longer still. To pick up such a diamond is to hold motion and memory in one cool, weightless stone. And even after diamonds are found and cut, their stories continue. Each gem, once shaped and set, begins to collect its own history. A ring passed through generations. A stone that witnessed a proposal, a loss, a lifetime of small, quiet moments. The pressure that formed it is long gone, but the energy remains, not the energy of heat, but of meaning. We speak of diamonds as symbols of eternity, not because they live forever, but because they hold a kind of timelessness. They do not change once formed, they do not fade, they are among the oldest thing. As we can touch, a diamond older than the stars you see tonight may sit quietly in a drawer, waiting to be worn again. It asks for nothing, it offers presence. And yet even the hardest stone has its limits. Diamonds are incredibly strong in most directions, but along certain internal planes they can cleave if struck just right. This fragility within strength is what allows gem cutters to shape them, but it also reminds us that even the most enduring things have points of vulnerability. Even the strongest must be understood, approached carefully, worked with rather than against. The diamond teaches not only resilience but respect. In the laboratory, scientists use diamonds to recreate the conditions of Earth's interior. In a diamond anvil cell, two gem-quality diamonds pressed together with tiny samples of material between them. This setup can generate pressures exceeding those at the center of the Earth. With lasers and sensors, researchers watch what happens, how minerals shift, how atoms rearrange, how matter behaves in the face of immense force. In this way, diamonds are not only records of deep Earth, they are keys to understanding it. These studies have revealed new materials, new behaviors, even new forms of matter that may only exist under such extremes. And yet, at the heart of every experiment is the same truth. Pressure changes everything. It does not always destroy. Sometimes it refines. Sometimes it reveals. And so the diamond remains our most poetic contradiction. Born from hardship but calm, created by violence but clear, carried to the surface by eruptions but held gently in the hand. It is a bridge between the unreachable deep and the everyday world, between the molten center of the earth and the quiet curve of a ring. Perhaps that is why we return to diamonds in our most tender moments. In beginnings and farewells, in promises and memories, we choose them not only for their sparkle but for what they've endured. They say something we can't always name, that even under pressure something beautiful can form. That silence is not empty. That time, if given enough weight, will shine. To touch a diamond is to touch something older than ourselves, something that remembers pressure not as pain but as transformation. It teaches us that clarity is earned, that beauty does not come without structure, that the deepest strength is not the absence of weakness but the ability to hold shape through it. And somewhere even now deep below the surface another diamond begins. A carbon atom slips into place. Another joins, the pressure grows, the heat rises, nothing visible changes, but something is happening. Slowly, silently, a lattice begins to form. And in 1,000,000 years, or 10, someone may hold it in their hand and see only a sparkle. But the stone will know. It will remember. Let us now return to the surface, slowly, carrying the memory of what lies beneath. The journey of a diamond does not end in a velvet box or on a jeweler's lighted display. It continues in the quiet understanding of what it truly is. Because to see a diamond for what it has become is only half the story. To feel what it came through, that is the other half. And that feeling is not one of perfection, but of pressure endured, reshaped, and made into something clear. There is something timeless about the way a diamond rests in the hand. It does not hum, it does not move, but it holds a weight beyond its size. The air around it changes as though time slows slightly. It is not because of its value or brilliance, but because of what we intuitively sense, that this crystal was once a formless possibility, just carbon like charcoal, like soot. But under the immense forces of the earth, it found alignment, and in that alignment, it became strong. Not all diamonds are treasured for clarity. Some are filled with specks and streaks, stormed with shadows. These are called salt and pepper diamonds. They are often overlooked, passed over for the cleaner, brighter stones, but many now find their way into the hands of those who see beauty in truth. Their flaws are not hidden, they are highlighted. They speak of complexity, of imperfection carried gracefully. They are not empty windows, they are weathered pages, they are maps of what was survived. In these stones, the message becomes even clearer. Perfection is not the only path to light. There are many ways to reflect, many ways to shine. Even in the shadows held within a diamond, there is brilliance, just a different kind, softer, more human. In certain traditions, diamonds were not simply worn but carried as protectors. Warriors fastened them to armor. Healers placed them on pressure points. Kings slept with them under pillows, believing they warded off nightmares and poison. There was a time when diamonds were believed to make a person invincible, not because of the stone's hardness, but because of the strength it symbolized. That belief, however ancient, speaks to something. Enduring, our desire to hold on to the unbreakable, to keep close a reminder that some things withstand even the deepest trials. And perhaps that is why diamonds are given at beginnings, an engagement, a new chapter, a renewal. We pass them from hand to hand as if saying, here is something that endured, may we do the same. And when they are passed again decades later, perhaps from a parent to a child, they carry not just the original promise but every quiet hour in between, every day of laughter, every fight survived, every silence that softened instead of split. The diamond is not just a symbol of love. It is a witness to it. But the earth does not create symbols. It creates stones. It is we who give them meaning. It is we who look into their edges and decide they mean eternity. We who find reflection in their clarity. We who place them on fingers into settings behind glass. Yet the stone itself remains unchanged. Whether in a museum or a mine or a riverbed, it remembers the same story. Pressure, patience, precision. There are diamonds still buried that will never be found. They sit in ancient rocks, unknown, uncut, unseen, but their value is no less. They exist without audience, without praise, and still they hold their perfect shape. There is peace in that, the idea that something can be complete without needing to be noticed. That transformation is enough. And in the lab, under conditions made to mimic the deep earth, synthetic diamonds continue to grow. Carbon vapor condenses, temperatures climb, and in controlled perfection new crystals form. They are pure, useful, indistinguishable from natural ones to most eyes, but they are young. Their story is not of continents or magma or volcanic breath. It is a different kind of clarity, manufactured, intentional, yet still shaped by pressure. So what then is the true message of a diamond? Not sparkle, not wealth, not even love, it is endurance. The reminder that the most extraordinary things are not born from ease but from persistence. That light, when trapped and pressed for long enough, finds a way to return. That even in a world built on force and time, beauty rises, not despite difficulty, but because of it. This is the diamond's wisdom, and we carry it whether we know it or not, in every trial endured, in every scar worn with grace, in every moment we choose to hold shape rather than shatter. The diamond becomes our metaphor, our mirror, our muse. And so when you hold one, whether perfect or peppered, small or vast, feel its weight, not the weight of carats or cost, but the weight of history, of heat, of hidden oceans and shifting plates, of a planet breathing in silence. Let that weight remind you that nothing truly worth keeping is ever formed in haste. That brilliance needs structure. That strength is invisible until tested. Imagine now the moment a diamond first meets the light. After eons in the dark, it breaks the surface, rough, crusted, buried in rubble, and someone bends to pick it up. In that instant, all the pressure, all the waiting, all the unseen years become presence. It glints slightly, perhaps not yet fully understood, but it is enough. The journey begins again. Because a diamond is never just a thing. It is a lesson carried in form, a story told without sound, a memory waiting to be felt. So let us end gently the way diamonds begin, quietly under pressure with no guarantee of what will come. Let us carry the understanding that we too are shaped by the unseen, that within our own struggles a lattice may be forming, invisible now, but real, strong, ready in time to reflect something true. And if ever you feel lost, heavy, unshaped, remember the diamond. Remember that clarity is not where the journey starts. It is where it arrives after everything else. Somewhere beneath your feet, deep in the quiet earth, a carbon atom has just found its place. It begins again. Beneath the visible surface of things, beneath the frost on a window, the glint of a snowflake, the stillness of a salt grain, there is a secret pattern that shapes the world. It is not drawn by hand or carved by wind. It is woven by time itself, with rules too small for the eye, too elegant for accident. This is the world of lattices, the hidden frameworks that give structure to the quiet order of matter. It is a world made not of bricks or beams, but of symmetry, space, and repetition. And in this gentle geometry, nature whispers something profound, that all things, given time, will try to become beautiful. A lattice is a kind of invisible scaffolding, a repeating pattern that atoms follow when they decide to rest in place. It is not imposed from outside. It arises from balance, from the subtle tug of forces that prefer harmony to chaos. When molten metal cools or a crystal grows from a solution, atoms do not settle at random. They arrange themselves carefully, choosing the same distances, the same angles, again and again, until order spreads like a hush. Across a crowd. These patterns can be simple or impossibly intricate. Salt, for instance, forms a cubic lattice, each sodium ion hugged by 6 chloride ions, and vice versa, forming tiny perfect cubes that stack like invisible bricks. Quartz, in contrast, forms a spiral lattice that twists in space, each silicon atom held by 4 oxygen atoms in a 3-dimensional dance that repeats across miles if given time. Snowflakes, with their 6-pointed grace, grow from a hexagonal lattice of ice, where water molecules hold hands in a frozen embrace, repeating and reflecting until beauty becomes inevitable. But what makes a lattice more than structure is its stillness. Once formed, it holds, not because it cannot change, but because it has no reason to. Within a crystal, the atoms vibrate gently like sleepers breathing. They are not frozen, they are simply content. They move just enough to remain in place, like dancers who have learned the steps so well they no longer need to think. This stability gives rise to clarity, to strength, to shine. Time is the silent weaver in this process. Crystals that grow quickly are often cloudy, disordered, rushed, but those that grow slowly, over centuries or millennia, become pure. Their lattices form with care, layer by layer, repeating without fault. This is why geodes, formed deep in volcanic bubbles, often reveal astonishing symmetry when broken open. It is not magic, it is patience. And yet lattices are not lifeless. They respond. Under pressure they flex, under heat they expand, under vibration they resonate. Some lattices, like those in piezoelectric crystals, even generate electricity when squeezed. Others, like those in superconductors, allow current to flow without resistance when cooled. A lattice is not just a shape. It is a possibility, a platform where nature explores what can happen when things are arranged just so. In the bones of your body, lattices hold shape. The mineral part of bone is mostly a crystal called hydroxyapatite, a lattice of calcium, phosphate, and hydroxide ions. It gives bones their strength and rigidity while still allowing for flexibility through the protein collagen. This blend, hard crystal and soft matrix, is one of biology's greatest inventions. It lets us stand, move, and grow. And though we rarely think of it, our very posture is a lattice in motion. The same is true of shells, of coral, of tooth enamel. Each is built from a structured mineral pattern, guided by living cells but obeying the deep laws of crystallization. Even deep within plants, lattice-like arrangements help structure cellulose, the most abundant organic polymer on Earth. These structures are not random. They are blueprints passed through time, shaped by evolution and chemistry and quiet resilience. Lattices also exist in silence, in the way sound moves through materials. The pitch of a bell, the echo of a canyon, the hum of a tuning fork all depend on how sound waves ripple through the ordered structure of matter. In crystals, these waves travel differently along different directions because the lattice changes how vibrations spread. This is called anisotropy, and it is why a diamond can sing differently along one axis than another. The song is the same, the path changes. And when light enters a crystal, the lattice matters again. Light can bend, split, or change color depending on how it passes through. In some minerals, light rotates as it travels, twisted gently by the spiral of the internal pattern. In others, it slows, shatters into rainbows, or reflects with strange clarity. This is why some crystals sparkle, some glow, and some remain invisible until turned just right. The lattice shapes not just what we see, but how we see. Even in materials we call ordinary, glass, metal, ceramic, the idea of the lattice lingers. In metals, atoms slide past one another when stressed, allowing for malleability. But the overall structure still holds, a loose but loyal lattice of shared electrons. In ceramics, the lattice is rigid, brittle, strong. In glass, the lattice is broken, chaotic, frozen in the act of flowing. These differences shape everything we use, from skyscrapers to smartphone screens, from porcelain teacups to jet engines. And yet, lattices are not limited to minerals or materials. In physics, we find them everywhere, in the arrangement of particles in a Bose-Einstein condensate, in the interference patterns of light, in the behavior of electrons in graphene sheets. Even in the strange realm of quantum mechanics, lattices guide possibility. In simulations of spacetime, physicists use lattice models to explore the early universe, mapping particles onto grids to see how matter and energy might have danced in the first seconds of creation. Lattices, it seems, are nature's preferred language, not rigid like words but rhythmic like music, not commands but invitations, and time is the composer. Every crystal, every stable arrangement, every repeating unit C. LL is a note struck in deep time, a chord formed under quiet pressure. And still, not every lattice is perfect. Some have dislocations, small shifts or mismatches in the otherwise repeating pattern. These imperfections, rather than weakening the material, often make it stronger. In metals, dislocations help prevent cracks. In semiconductors, they guide the flow of electrons. In crystals, they scatter light in ways that add depth and complexity. A flawless lattice may be beautiful, but a slightly flawed one can be resilient, surprising, alive. Perhaps this is the lesson hidden in all these ordered patterns, that beauty lies not only in perfection but in persistence. That time can weave symmetry even in silence, that what seems still is always becoming. The salt in your kitchen, the frost on your window, the shimmer of snow, all are testimonies to the patient architecture of matter, the lattice beneath the world's movement. So next time you hold a crystal or glance at a snowflake or feel the weight of bone beneath your skin, remember the pattern that holds it all together. Remember that what feels solid is, at its heart, a song of repetition. That deep within every substance is a quiet geometry trying always to make sense. And that time, when given space to breathe, will not tangle, it will weave. And in that weaving, something simple becomes something sacred. Drift with me deeper now, beyond the visible patterns and into the spaces between them. Because in every lattice there is more than structure, there is meaning held in silence. The spaces between the atoms, the voids that seem empty, are just as vital as the atoms themselves. Without those spaces there could be no symmetry, no stability, no flow of light or sound. The lattice is not just the substance, it is the rhythm between what is present and what is not. And in that rhythm, time speaks softly. Across the world there are crystals that grew so slowly they record the passing of ages. Layer by layer they added to themselves, not in rushes, not with noise, but in tiny repetitions. A molecule here, a pause, another, until what began as invisible becomes seen, becomes held, becomes sacred. These are not just mineral artifacts, they are timelines solidified. Each layer, each growth band, each trapped bubble of fluid tells a story of what the world was like when that moment crystallized. In Iceland, certain lava flows have cooled into columnar basalt, long hexagonal pillars that rise like frozen music from the earth. Though not crystals in the traditional sense, these too are lattices born of cooling. As molten rock hardened, it contracted, forming cracks that followed paths of least resistance. And in doing so, it obeyed a deep rule, symmetry where none was planned. These columns stretch skyward in stillness, their edges worn by time but their shape intact. They are reminders that even fire can become form. In the cold heart of a cave, a stalactite grows. It drips, it waits, it adds. Each mineral droplet leaves behind a trace, and over centuries these traces build, always down, always with gravity's permission. Inside, if you could look close enough, you would see a crystalline structure guiding the form, not rushed, not random. A mineral lattice unfolding over time, long after footsteps have faded. Its partner below, the stalagmite, rises to meet it. Two structures born from the same drip, growing toward each other in the dark. Sometimes lattices are hidden until revealed by change. In meteorites that fall to Earth from space, scientists have discovered patterns known as Widmanstetten figures, delicate interlocking bands of nickel iron that formed over millions of years as the molten core of an asteroid slowly cooled in deep space. No forge on Earth can reproduce them exactly. They are cosmic lattices, written in metal, older than our sun, older than our sky. In the laboratory, we have learned to imitate these processes. We grow crystals in beakers and ovens, coaxing atoms into line with heat, time, and care. In schools, children place copper sulfate into water and watch blue crystals rise like tiny cities from the bottom of the jar. It is not magic, it is invitation. The atoms respond to time, to temperature, to concentration. They do not argue, they assemble. And watching them, we learn the quiet power of patience. In the heart of technology, we find lattices again. Silicon chips, the minds of our machines, are built on precisely arranged atoms. A silicon wafer is not just flat, it is ordered to a degree almost impossible to imagine. Each transistor, each junction, each flow of electricity depends on the placement of atoms within a crystal lattice. If just one layer is wrong, the system falters. But when right, it becomes a conductor of thought itself. In superconductors, cooled to near absolute zero, the lattice becomes something more, something close to perfect. Electrons glide without resistance, carried not through collision but through rents. They move as one body, one rhythm, one quiet wave. This phenomenon, called quantum coherence, can only happen when the lattice holds everything still enough for unity. In such a place, time bends, possibility opens. The material becomes not just a crystal, but a chorus. And then there are the organic lattices, found in biology, woven not of atoms but of molecules and intentions. DNA, the double helix, is a kind of soft lattice. Its repeating structure holds the code of life, not by shouting but by folding. Proteins, too, adopt crystalline arrangements when conditions are right, their folds forming complex architectures that guide function, not just form. Even viruses build themselves from lattice logic, capsids that follow geometric rules to enclose their fragile cargo. In coral reefs, entire ecosystems rise from crystalline skeletons. Tiny polyps extract calcium and carbonate from seawater and lay down aragonite, a form of calcium carbonate, in precise arrangements. These lattices stack and branch, creating cathedrals under the sea. In doing so, they provide shelter, food, and stability for life across the ocean. And yet they are vulnerable. When the water grows too warm or too acidic, the lattice dissolves. The structure forgets its shape. What was built over centuries can fade in weeks. Even in our own minds, there is an echo of the lattice. Not in the neurons themselves, perhaps, but in the rhythms they follow. Patterns of firing, waves of electrical activity, circuits that repeat and resonate. These are not crystals, not in the physical sense, but they are ordered and they are shaped by experience. Our memories form not just from events, but from the repetition of pathways. In this way, perhaps, thought itself is a kind of invisible lattice, woven not of matter, but of meaning. And when we sleep, our brain returns to those paths. It replays, it reorganizes, it smooths. The quiet hours of rest are not idle, they are a form of crystallization. What was fluid in the day becomes structured by night. This is how dreams help us understand, not by invention but by arrangement. The night, too, weaves. Sometimes lattices are seen where none exist. Snowflakes under a microscope, though beautiful, are often imperfect. Their symmetry is an illusion, a suggestion of order that invites the mind to finish the pattern. This is the dance between perception and reality. The world is rarely perfect, but it reaches for it, and we, in seeing it, are changed. In art and architecture, humans have borrowed the idea of the lattice for millennia. From the interlocking bricks of Roman aqueducts to the fretwork of Islamic tile, from the woven baskets of indigenous peoples to the stained glass of cathedrals, there is a longing to repeat, to reflect, to harmonize. We create patterns not because the world demands them, but because our hearts do. Order gives us peace. Repetition gives us meaning. And so we build and draw and carve. We find comfort in the grid, in the spiral, in the hexagon. Even without knowing why, we follow the same logic the atoms do, because in rhythm there is rest, and in rest there is revelation. Nature, too, leaves room for variation. No two crystals are truly identical, no two snowflakes the same. Even the most rigid lattice can hold a flaw, and that flaw, if repeated just so, becomes a new pattern. This is how evolution works. This is how creativity survives, by bending the rules just enough to grow. And what of the future? Scientists now dream of programmable matter, materials whose lattice structures can shift on command, crystals that respond to thought, metals that remember shape, polymers that self-heal, all built on the same ancient principle, that matter, when arranged with care, becomes more than itself. It becomes memory, it becomes voice, it becomes a song you can hold. And so the lattice endures across time, across form, across silence. It does not ask to be seen, it only asks to be allowed. Allowed to grow, allowed to rest, allowed to repeat. And in that repetition, we find something close to truth. Let us linger now at the edge of this invisible architecture, where matter meets meaning and the final threads of pattern are woven into stillness. The story of the lattice is not one of conquest or noise. It is a story told in repetitions, in the patient unfolding of balance. It teaches us not through words but through form, through the silent agreements made between atoms when they choose to stay together, again and again, through heat, through pressure, through time. Everywhere we look, we see the echoes of these arrangements. In the shine of a spoon, in the crack of ice, in the shimmer of soap film on a breeze. But these are only the surfaces. Beneath them, order whispers. Atoms still hold hands, bonds still repeat. The world remains woven even when we forget the pattern. And yet the most poetic lattices are not always the ones we see. Sometimes the most profound strew. Sutures are invisible, the deep networks of molecules in silk which allow a spider's thread to stretch without breaking. The carbon hexagons in graphene, just one atom thick yet stronger than steel. The complex crystalline cages of zeolites trapping water and gas in their honeycombed embrace. These materials do not boast, they function, they serve, they endure. Even the crust of the earth carries the memory of old lattices. Minerals worn by erosion, caught in sediments, pressed again into stone. The lattice changes form, is broken, reassembled, dissolved, reborn. A crystal that once lay in a mountain may one day find itself part of a beach. Still it holds echoes of its original structure. Still it remembers how to arrange. This remembrance, this capacity to return to order, is what gives lattices their mystery. They are not just outcomes, they are tendencies, preferences etched into the fabric of matter itself. Left alone, atoms will try to find their way back into relationship. They do not always succeed, but they always try. It is as if nature carries within it a longing for togetherness, a quiet desire for symmetry. In our own lives, we follow patterns too. We repeat gestures, rituals, habits. We build relationships from repeated kindness, from quiet evenings, from small choices made with care. We may not be atoms, but we are not so different. We seek balance. We seek connection. We seek to make sense through repetition. And sometimes, like crystals, we fracture. But we can also reform, realign, begin again. The metaphor extends further. In the structure of a family, we see lattices of belonging. In the chords of a song, we feel the comfort of recurrence. In poetry, in language, in tradition, we find meaning shaped by rhythm. These are the human lattices. They hold not atoms, but experience, not electrons, but memory. Time does not rush these structures. It helps them unfold. Just as a crystal grows more perfect when given time, so too do relationships, communities, cultures. To build something enduring, something worth holding, time is not the cost, it is the source. A hurried lattice collapses, a careful one sings. And so the science of lattices becomes, quietly, a philosophy, a way of seeing the world as more than chaos, a reminder that beauty is not always spontaneous, that it can emerge through structure, through discipline, through waiting. This is why ancient cultures revered crystals, not only for their sparkle but for what they suggested, that order lies beneath confusion, that even the smallest things have a way of coming together, that in the deepest silence a structure might be forming. In the heart of a glacier, ice crystals press into each other, aligning slowly under pressure. In the mantle below, silicate lattices adjust to shifting heat, becoming denser, more intricate. Even the crust above, though seemingly solid, flexes and flows with time. The entire Earth is a lattice of forces, convection, compression, expansion, working in unseen harmony. And above us, the stars burn in lattices of plasma. Within their cores, nuclear reactions rearrange the structure of matter itself. Helium born from hydrogen, carbon from helium. The very atoms that later cool and arrange into crystals on Earth began in these stellar lattices. The order we see under a microscope once pulsed in the heart of a sun. And so, when we hold a crystal, we are not just holding geology, we are holding cosmology, a small piece of time frozen into clarity, a quiet reminder that the universe prefers pattern, prefers resonance, prefers to return to a shape that makes sense. There is peace in this, in knowing that the same laws that govern the growth of a snowflake also shape the bones in our bodies, that the same symmetry found in a salt crystal exists in the stars above, that the world is not random, not fully, that it contains seeds of structure, waiting for time to let them bloom. Even chaos left long enough gives way to order. Given patience, even confusion finds a rhythm. The lattice teaches this. It waits, it endures, it remembers how to form. And perhaps the final beauty of the lattice lies in its humility. It does not demand attention. It hides beneath the surface. It does not shine for its own sake, but because light passes through it cleanly. It does not hold fast, but allows vibration. It is not rigid, but balanced. It is not loud, but lasting. And so, as we finish this quiet exploration, let us remember the truth hidden in these repeating patterns. That life, too, can be beautiful when it aligns. That clarity comes not from chaos avoided, but from harmony chosen. That structure is not limitation. It is possibility. You too are made of lattices, in your cells, in your thoughts, in your memories. You carry structures older than you can name, and with each choice, each pause, each quiet act of alignment, you build your own. Time is your partner, pattern is your tool, and the song of the lattice, soft, repeating, enduring, plays on. It waits in your breath, in your bones, in the stones beneath your feet, in the stars above. And always, always it weaves.